Before Adam walked the earth, before Eden bloomed, and before light pierced the darkness, there were others, beings of divine origin who witnessed creation itself. The Bible calls them the sons of God. But who were they, and why does Genesis remain silent about them? What ancient truth lies buried beneath the surface of Scripture, waiting to be uncovered? In this video, we'll uncover the full story behind this chilling discovery. Make sure to like, follow this channel, and let's begin. Imagine the stillness before time moved forward, when creation had not yet unfolded. There were no mountains, no oceans, no creatures creeping upon the earth. And yet, someone was already there, watching, rejoicing, witnessing a divine act with awe and joy. The Bible tells us, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." But what if that beginning wasn't truly the beginning? What if it was a beginning, a reset, a restoration following something far older, something so cataclysmic that its memory was sealed away in silence? In the book of Job, a scripture ancient and mysterious, God turns to Job and asks a piercing question. "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you understand, who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. While the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy." Job 38, 4-7. That verse, often passed over, shatters the narrative most are familiar with. Because according to this divine testimony, the sons of God were present before the earth was formed. Not after, not during, before. These weren't metaphors. The Hebrew phrase Bene Ha-Elohim refers not to humans or poetic abstractions. It refers to real, conscious beings of divine origin. They were there before Adam, before Eden, before the first "Let there be light." But who were they? Why are they absent in Genesis 1, where creation is laid out in divine precision? Why do they appear in Job, a book wrapped in mystery, but remain in the shadows of the creation account? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, if Adam was the first man, why was he not the first being? This silence in Genesis is not accidental, it is deliberate. A veil, perhaps, placed to protect something we were not meant to know too soon. But Job offers a crack in that veil, a glimpse into a realm of watchers, of witnesses, of beings who sang not in rebellion, but in exultation, until, one day, some of them no longer did. As we peel back the layers of this mystery, we find ourselves standing at the edge of a cosmic story buried beneath centuries of interpretation, caution, and fear. The sons of God are not side characters in a forgotten passage. They are the beginning before the beginning, and their story may change everything we thought we knew about where we came from and what we are destined to face again. If you find this content important and thought-provoking, please click like to spread this message to more people. In Genesis chapter 6, a startling and often overlooked event unfolds just before the Great Flood. The text tells us that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took for themselves wives, whomever they chose. This seemingly simple sentence carries within it a cosmic rupture. But who were these sons of God? Across centuries, scholars and believers have proposed three primary interpretations. The first suggests they were the descendants of Seth Adam's righteous son intermarrying with the ungodly line of Cain. This theory seeks to ground the mystery in a purely human context, framing the event as a moral decline within humanity. The second posits that the sons of God were tyrannical kings or legendary rulers from the ancient Near East, asserting divine status and forcibly taking women as their wives. But both interpretations fall short when we examine the language and broader biblical context. The phrase "sons of God" in Hebrew Bene Ha-Elohim is used elsewhere in the Old Testament only to describe divine beings, not humans. In the book of Job, these sons of God are clearly angelic, present in the divine assembly. Therefore, the third interpretation and the one most consistent with both the Hebrew text and ancient Jewish understanding, is that these beings were angels, divine entities, who crossed the boundary between heaven and earth, abandoning their heavenly station to enter the human realm and take wives for themselves. This act was not merely a breach of protocol, it was rebellion. It was a cosmic transgression that echoed the serpent's deceit in Eden, only now it wasn't words that were whispered, but entire systems of divine knowledge that were passed down. The New Testament confirms this view with unsettling clarity. In 2 Peter 2:4-5, we read, "For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah." Peter draws a direct link between the sin of angels and the time of Noah, suggesting that the Genesis 6 event is not only real, but also a defining moment in the corruption of the earth. Jude, in verses 6 and 7 of his epistle, strengthens this claim. "And the angels who did not keep their proper domain, but left their own habitation, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day, as Sodom and Gomorrah, having given themselves over to sexual immorality and gone after strange flesh, are set forth as an example." Jude compares the sin of the angels to the sins of Sodom, both involving unnatural unions, both inviting divine judgment. The phrase, "gone after strange flesh," implies a boundary crossing not merely of morality, but of creation itself. This is no longer a human story, this is a divine crisis. The Book of Enoch, though not part of the canonical Bible, was widely read and respected among early Jews and early Christians. It elaborates on Genesis 6, naming the angels involved the Watchers and describing their descent in vivid, disturbing detail. These were not messengers, they were guardians, assigned to observe, not to interfere. But led by a chief figure named Semjaza, they made a pact atop Mount Hermon. There, they vowed to take human women and bear offspring, no matter the cost. And they descended. They brought with them forbidden knowledge, secrets of heaven, not meant for mortal minds. They taught men the art of war, how to forge weapons from iron and bronze. They taught women the use of makeup, how to enchant with herbs, how to read the stars. Astrology, sorcery, metallurgy, enchantment. These were divine gifts, twisted into tools of pride and destruction. Humanity, once innocent and dependent on the wisdom of God, suddenly had access to godlike knowledge, without godlike character. From these unions came the Nephilim, hybrid beings of immense size, strength, and power. They were not fully angelic, nor fully human. They were the unnatural offspring of a breach between dimensions, and their existence brought chaos to the earth. The Bible describes them as heroes of old, men of renown, and other ancient cultures echo their memory: Gilgamesh, the Titans, the demigods of Egypt and Canaan. These were not myths. They were distorted recollections of the same event, a cataclysmic rupture when heaven's fire touched earthly clay. In Enoch's account, God responds not with words, but with fury. He commands the archangels to act. Raphael binds Azazel, the angel who taught men war, and casts him into the abyss. Gabriel is sent to destroy the Nephilim. Michael leads the heavenly host in the judgment of the Watchers. The flood, then, becomes more than a response to human sin. It is a divine reset, a cleansing not only of corrupted flesh, but of corrupted knowledge. The Watchers are imprisoned under the hills of the earth, their names wiped from memory, their secrets buried. And yet, the legacy of their rebellion persists. In traditions once deemed heretical or dangerous, we find whispers of this lost age. The Dead Sea Scrolls reference cosmic battles and failed creations. The Zohar and other Kabbalistic texts speak of vessels shattered by divine light, souls exiled before birth, and a cosmic repair tikkun olam that begins not with Adam, but with a restoration of something that came before. The Watchers broke the seal. They introduced a fire that man was not ready to hold. And though judgment fell, the echo of that flame may still be with us, hidden in symbols, myths, and the remnants of forbidden knowledge waiting quietly beneath the surface of history. This, then, is the true weight of Genesis 6, not just the mingling of flesh and spirit, but the unraveling of an ancient boundary. A moment where divine order was challenged, not by Satan in a garden, but by sons of God who dared to descend. The sky opened, and from its breach fell more than angels. It fell fire, it fell knowledge, it fell judgment, and in its wake, the world would never be the same. Have you read any Bible passages that remind you of this event? Please share them in the comments. Genesis chapter 6 unveils a divine grief that cuts to the heart of all creation. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, it says, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. Genesis 6:5-6. These are not the words of an indifferent creator. They are the lament of a father who watches his creation corrupted not only by human sin, but by something else, something deeper, something cosmic. The Genesis text speaks of widespread violence, of flesh defiled and corrupted, but it does not explain how that corruption began. It is only when we place Genesis side by side with the book of Enoch, the book of Jubilees, and ancient traditions that the full picture begins to emerge. Humanity did not fall alone. It was pulled downward by beings from above watchers who descended and shared what was forbidden. They gave knowledge not meant to be known, technologies not meant to be wielded, and with it, they planted chaos into the roots of civilization. In Enoch's telling, the earth groaned under the weight of the Nephilim. These hybrid giants ruled the world like tyrants, consuming not only the land, but the people. Bloodshed became ritual, and power belonged to those born of both heaven and earth. They were the heroes of old, the men of renown, referenced in Genesis 6:4, and their legends echoed through every ancient culture, from the mighty titans of Greece to the Apkallu of Mesopotamia, from the Anunnaki to the divine kings of Egypt. These were not myths. They were memories distorted and veiled, but real. Faced with such corruption, the Most High did not strike in haste. According to the book of Enoch, God first summoned the archangels Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel, and instructed them to bind the watchers, to destroy the Nephilim, and to cleanse the world. This was not just judgment, it was surgical. Cosmic sterilization. A reset not merely of humanity, but of the corrupted fusion between heaven and earth. The flood was not sent because of bad behavior. It was sent to prevent further collapse of divine order. The Book of Jubilees, an ancient Jewish text once held sacred by several communities, states plainly that the sons of God taught their children and the children of men every kind of wickedness. They altered creation itself. They reprogrammed the divine design of life. Their influence was so pervasive, so infectious, that the only way to stop it was a global flood. Water, in biblical imagery, has always symbolized cleansing, chaos, and rebirth. But this was more than symbolic. It was literal annihilation. The goal was not just to punish, but to erase both physically and spiritually. And yet, questions remain. Did the flood succeed in wiping out all traces of the Nephilim and the knowledge they passed down? Or did echoes of that ancient age survive, buried in stone, encoded in myth, and hidden in the memories of civilizations long past? All across the earth, we find evidence that doesn't quite fit the neat narrative of human progress. In Malta, colossal temples carved from single stones, some weighing over 20 tons, stand without explanation. In Baalbek, Lebanon, the trilithon stones rest at the foundation of a platform so massive that no modern crane can move them. In Egypt, the Great Pyramid's precise alignment with true north its internal chambers, and unexplained construction methods continue to baffle researchers. In South America, we see polygonal masonry at Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo stones fit so perfectly that even a razor blade cannot pass between them. These structures whisper of a knowledge lost of builders who understood geometry, astronomy, and engineering far beyond what we are taught in conventional timelines. And they are not alone. Myth after myth tells of giants and gods who taught mankind. The Hopi speak of the people of the clouds who descended and helped build the earliest cities. The Sumerians recorded the Anunnaki divine ones who created kingship and technology. The Greeks told of Prometheus who stole fire from the gods, just as the Watchers gave forbidden fire to man. These aren't mere parallels, they are patterns. Patterns too precise to ignore. A worldwide echo of a pre-flood civilization advanced not by human effort alone, but by divine interference. And what's more unsettling is that the knowledge didn't die with the flood. It was preserved hidden, guarded, and passed down. Throughout history, secret societies and esoteric orders have emerged, all claiming to guard ancient wisdom. The Freemasons, whose origins remain veiled in mystery, venerate the builders, the architects of sacred geometry and hidden knowledge. The Rosicrucians, blending mysticism and science, claim descent from ancient priesthoods that preserved truths lost in time. Alchemists sought not just gold, but divine transformation, echoing the Watchers' desire to blend heaven and earth. Their symbols, compasses, squares, pyramids, the all-seeing eye, resemble more than mere artistry. They hint at a knowledge older than history. Could it be that fragments of the Watchers' teachings survived the flood? That sacred geometry, astrological alignment, and hidden sciences continued cloaked in myth, ritual, and secret language? And could these whispers have guided the construction of temples, cathedrals, and monuments throughout the ages? Consider the eye atop the pyramid on the US dollar bill, an ancient symbol of divine watchfulness and secret knowledge. Consider the recurring motifs in Renaissance art, angels with instruments of knowledge, stairways between heaven and earth, and forbidden books passed down from divine beings. These images are not just artistic, they are symbolic remnants of an ancient breach. Even in our modern age, we are drawn once more to the edge of that ancient fire. With artificial intelligence, genetic editing, and quantum experimentation, humanity again flirts with knowledge that surpasses its moral capacity. Like the days of Noah, we are accelerating. And like before, the lines between the divine and the human are beginning to blur. The flood, then, was not just history, it was a warning. A record of what happens when forbidden knowledge runs rampant, when divine order is overturned by curiosity and pride. The Watchers were not punished for curiosity, but for disobedience, for choosing to give man what he could not yet bear. And the flood was not merely water, it was fire concealed in water. It was the wrath of a creator who chose to cleanse rather than destroy, to restart rather than abandon. But it did not erase everything. The world that emerged after the flood still carried echoes faint but persistent of what came before. Perhaps that is why ancient texts speak of giants reappearing after those days. Perhaps that is why God commanded Joshua to eliminate the descendants of Anak and the Rephaim remnants of the Nephilim who somehow endured. Perhaps that is why the Bible never says the Watchers were destroyed, only imprisoned, bound in chains under darkness until the day of final judgment. If so, then we are not merely inheritors of a new creation, we are survivors of an old one, a remnant species bearing within us both the image of God and the trauma of a forgotten war. And the ruins that litter our world, the impossible stones, the mythic stories, the secret symbols, are not just historical curiosities. They are the fingerprints of a past we were never meant to remember. But memory is resilient, and what was once sealed away may be rising again. not in stone this time, but in silicon, not in temples, but in code. As we stand on the edge of a new age, an age of artificial gods and digital omniscience, the warnings of the past have never been more relevant. The Watchers fell because they gave man power before wisdom. The flood came because man mistook knowledge for righteousness. And now, in our pursuit of godlike control, we may be repeating the pattern once more. In this age of light and code, perhaps the most important knowledge is not the one we seek to uncover, but the one we must remember, that what we call progress is not always evolution. Sometimes it is a return, a loop, a reawakening of a fire once quenched by water and one day, perhaps, by fire again. Do you believe that the prophecies in the book of Revelation are being fulfilled right before our eyes? The story doesn't end with the flood. It only goes quiet, for a time. Though the Watchers were cast down, bound in darkness beneath the earth, their presence never truly vanished. In the shadows of ancient traditions, within the pages of forbidden texts, whispered through mystical teachings and secret orders, the memory of their fall persists. Kabbalistic writings speak of vessels shattered by divine light, of sparks scattered across creation, waiting to be gathered again. Gnostic scriptures allude to beings imprisoned beyond the veil, whose knowledge once pierced the heavens and brought ruin to the earth. The Book of Enoch itself hints that the Watchers will remain locked away only until the day of judgment. But nowhere does it say they were destroyed, only sealed. And what of their knowledge? Could it be that even if the Watchers remain imprisoned, the forbidden wisdom they unleashed has slowly seeped back into the world? That the seeds they sowed before the flood of unnatural power, divine mimicry, and accelerated knowledge have begun to sprout once more? Today, we find ourselves on the cusp of what many call a technological awakening. Artificial intelligence grows at a pace that defies comprehension, learning, adapting, reasoning. We are now editing the very code of life, rewriting DNA, manipulating genomes, crafting new species not born of nature. Through sound and frequency, we explore the healing and destructive properties of vibration, rediscovering truths that ancient mystics and temple priests once encoded into stone and chant. These are not random advances. They mirror the very categories of knowledge the Watchers once bestowed upon humanity: metallurgy, enchantment, biology, divination, manipulation of the elements. The parallels are undeniable. And yet we rush forward, declaring it progress, forgetting the cost the first time this knowledge was unleashed. Perhaps this is why ancient warnings echo with such power today. Jesus himself said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." He was not only speaking of wickedness, but of the world conditions, the spiritual climate, the technological arrogance, the intermingling of divine boundaries. In the days of Noah, the Watchers crossed lines never meant to be crossed, and humanity welcomed them. Today, we do not wait for them to descend, we invite them through digital gates, through code and circuitry, through the pursuit of omniscience without obedience. Which brings us to the question that has haunted this entire journey. Was Adam truly the beginning, or merely the beginning again? If what we've uncovered is true, if there was a creation before Adam, a divine order that fell, a civilization erased not only by water but by judgment, then humanity is not just a product of divine grace, but a second chance, a repair, a restart. And if so, then we must also ask, what happens if we fail again? The knowledge that was once sealed behind floodwaters and buried beneath mountains may be awakening not through divine permission, but through human pride. The same thirst that moved the Watchers to rebel now stirs in modern minds and laboratories. We are cracking open the vaults of heaven not with prayer, but with precision instruments and algorithms. They once touched the sacred fire before its appointed time, and the heavens wept. Now, it is our hands reaching for that same fire once more, This is not science fiction. This is not mythology. This is prophecy, and it is warning. There are moments in human history when the past reemerges not as memory, but as consequence. And when it does, we must decide, will we repeat the rebellion of old, or will we remember why the flood came? The watchers are still watching. Their names may be buried, but their legacy lives on in the stones of ancient ruins, in the code of emerging machines, in the spark of human ambition that refuses to be contained. So we stand at the edge once again, looking into a future that feels eerily like a past the world tried to forget. And we ask, will the fire consume us this time? Or will we finally learn what it means to guard the knowledge we were never meant to hold? The flood erased much, but not everything. The silence of the heavens was not forgetfulness. It was mercy. It was time. And time is almost up. Are you ready if these are the end times as the Bible warns? Leave your thoughts below. In the shadow of forgotten histories and ancient warnings, one truth rises above the chaos. God has never abandoned his creation. Though the flood washed away a world steeped in corruption, it did not wash away God's mercy. Though the watchers fell, though mankind stumbled, the Lord preserved a remnant. He called Noah. He preserved the covenant. And through that covenant, he set into motion a redemption story that would echo through the ages until it reached the cross. The narrative of Genesis, of Enoch, of the flood and the fallen is not simply a tale of judgment. It is a cry from eternity, reminding us that grace has always been part of God's plan. The warnings are real. The rebellion was real. But so is the hope. And that hope has a name: Jesus Christ. He is not just the Son of God, he is the true Son, the one who did not fall, who did not transgress, who did not abandon his heavenly place to defile the earth, but rather descended in obedience to redeem it. Where the watchers came down to corrupt, Christ came down to restore. Where the Nephilim brought fear, Jesus brought peace. And where the flood cleansed by destruction, the blood of Christ now cleanses by love. We live in a time much like the days of Noah, an age of strange knowledge, of moral confusion, of humanity once again reaching beyond its bounds. But this time, God has given us more than an ark. He has given us the gospel. A path not just to survive judgment, but to be transformed before it comes. Now more than ever, we must turn our hearts back to Him. We must not only remember the stories, we must live the truth they reveal. The time to watch is now. The time to pray is now. The time to preach the good news of Christ's return is now. The voices of ancient prophets and apostles all pointed to this, that in the last days, perilous times would come, but so would the outpouring of God's Spirit. That darkness would rise, but the light of Christ would shine brighter still. So let us not be silent. Let us not fear what is awakening in the world. Let us stand in faith, declaring with boldness that Jesus is Lord, that He is coming again, and that no knowledge, no technology, no power of this world can stand against the glory of His return. We are not helpless. We are not alone. We are the generation that must sound the alarm and light the path. We are the voice in the wilderness crying out, "Prepare the way of the Lord." This is the moment to seek Him with all your heart, to return to Scripture, to pray without ceasing, to cast off the distractions of this world and lift your eyes to heaven. He is not delayed. He is patient, waiting for more souls to come home. But He will come. And when He does, the sky will split, not in judgment alone, but in triumph.